So today I want to talk about this game called Yonder, the Cloud Catcher Chronicles. This is an adventure game in which you quest, farm, craft, and explore. This game was developed and published by a three-piece Australian team called Prideful Sloth, and you can find the game on both PS4 and Steam. Now the purpose of this video is to provide you with enough information to help you decide if this game is for you, and then I'll give you my personal verdict on whether it's worth playing or not. It's worth saying before this that everything here is just going to be my opinion, but anyway, let's hop right in. Yonder starts off allowing you to create your character, and when you've done this you end up on a ship in the middle of a storm. I'm not really going to talk about the story in this video because it's not so much the focus of the game. All that does matter right now though is that you find yourself in this cave after you get shipwrecked, and as you leave this cave you see this. Now if you don't think this is the most breathtaking thing you've ever seen, then get out of my face, because this is just beautiful, and it's indicative of how amazing the art direction in this game is. If you're into endearing and varied world design, stunning views and vistas, wonderful colour contrasts, and gorgeous water physics, then you're going to like this game. Let's keep on talking about the visuals for now though, because why would you want to stop? One of the things that Yonder does best is play with light. The game runs on a day-night cycle, which means that you get to experience different settings really frequently, and the way that light appears throughout is just fabulous, ranging from the way that your lantern reflects off the environment. My personal favourite, you have this little umbrella which helps you avoid fall damage, which is a great idea, and at night time it has a little light in it. This just really adds to the appeal and charm of this lovely open world, and it gives it so much character. There are 8 different settings throughout Yonder's world, from tundra to forest to desert, and each of them is lush and full of life and begs to be explored. There are 2 other visual elements worth mentioning quickly. The first is the customizability of the player character. As you explore and quest, you'll be rewarded with different hairstyles, hair dyes, costumes, and accessories, and you're able to customize yourself whenever and wherever. It's a nice touch, and having the ability to personalize your experience just adds to the charm of the game. The other visual element worth mentioning is the fauna you come across in Yonder. There are a few animals you can find, and they're all just adorable. You can gift them something they like, and they'll follow you about, which can allow you to domesticate or adopt them for farming. The design for this game deserves so much credit. It draws you in from the start, and never really lets you go. The environments only become more charming as you go on, and even though you unlock a fast travel system of sorts, where you can use these stones to move from place to place, you don't really end up using it that much, because walking around doesn't take a huge amount of time, and the settings are just brilliant. Traversal from place to place is almost never dull because of the sheer loveliness of your surroundings, so that's really nice. As I mentioned at the start, Yonder is an adventure game, and the entire focus of the game is on exactly that, adventure. This game is a perfect example of being able to capitalise on the opportunity to do things without constraints, or being told you can't. Generally, if you want to do something in Yonder's world, you can. You can focus your efforts on anything at any given time, and there's generally no penalty, only encouragement. It's brazen in its simplicity, and it's just so refreshing, and it gets even more contrarian to today's gaming climate when you find out that this game involves absolutely no combat of any kind. I understand that this could potentially be considered a turn-off for some people. I mean, from a personal standpoint, pretty much all of my favourite games are based around a combat system, but this game doesn't require it. It would kind of ruin it, honestly. Yonder's world is one in which you can relax and simply do whatever takes your fancy. Being able to go about your business with absolutely no anxiety or fear that you're in danger creates a feeling of comfort and ease, which is perfect here. This also means that the pacing of the game is tailored entirely to your liking. If you're like me, you're all about side quests and collectibles, but there's something for everyone here. So let's go into a bit more detail about what you can do, because this does make up the brunt of the game. There's a crafting system in the game, which has a fair bit of depth to it. There are plenty of items you can forage from the natural environments, ranging from flowers to coal, and these are all useful when it comes to crafting. In order to fully utilise the crafting system and get the most out of it, you can undertake quests to join guilds which specialise in a certain craft, such as cooking. There are a few of these and the variety is fun, but the crafting system isn't without fault. There are a few ingredients which are really irritating to get, for example mortar. Mortar is necessary for a lot of the construction crafting recipes, but I've only been able to find one trader who sells it, and generally in very limited amounts. Every chance I could be missing something obvious here, but it seems an odd contrast to have some materials be so ubiquitous in the overworld, and then others seemingly verging on non-existent. This doesn't ruin the entire crafting system though. It is a good system, just perhaps not 100% polished. There's a lot to be said for collecting up the items and making something yourself though. It's oddly therapeutic in a way, and in a typical example of good game design, most about everything you find has a purpose and helps your game experience in some way or another. This brings up Yonder's trading system, which I just mentioned briefly, which cuts out the money middleman and implements a bartering system in which you exchange goods which amount to a similar value. I like this in concept again because it increases the worth in any given resource you have and makes you think a bit differently about the stuff you're carrying about. Again, it isn't without fault. Sometimes it can be difficult to find something you're looking for because there isn't much indication about which trader stocks it, and it isn't always immediately obvious what you can just find and what you have to trade for. I have the same opinion as for the crafting system in a lot of ways. It works very well in concept and works well in the game too, but more could be done to it to make it a more intuitive and accessible component of the game. I also talked about the wildlife in the game earlier on, which brings me to farming. The farming system works really well and follows a tried and tested farm building system in which you get your hands on some stuff for your farm, like animal pens, place them in, and get yourself some livestock. You can hire farmhands to help you out at the farm, and you can get items from your farm if you pop back and check on it every so often. From a very personal standpoint, farming isn't something that I find too enthralling in games, and that's why I actually quite like it in Yonder. Farming is not the majority of the game, it's the minority. It's something you can choose to focus on if you want to, but there's nothing telling you that you absolutely have to. It's as I was saying earlier, what makes this game special is the ability to choose what you do, and when you do it. I've never particularly felt that compulsion to maintain a farm, so I've not done nearly as much farming as I have exploring or questing, and that's totally fine. Speaking of questing though, this is one of the more prominent features of the game. You have a quest line which progresses the story, and these quests are good because they introduce a lot of the game's features that we've already mentioned, such as farming and trading. The world is filled with side quests too, most of which are unabashedly fetch quests, but also involve using skills you've learned. For example, my favourite one has been a quest in which a woman wants you to make her a stew to help her grow a beard. Yes, the game does have a sense of humour. And to do this, you have to go catch a fish specifically for this recipe, and yes, you can fish as well. And then craft it into a stew and then give it back to her. It's all very entertaining and charming, but again, the system could be improved. The reward or incentive for questing could be greater, and some of the quests could hypothetically be more than just fetch quests, but it is still fun at the end of it. The navigation system in the game is really good though. You have a compass which sends a beam of light in the direction of your next quest, somewhat in the style of Shadow of the Colossus. But easily my favourite thing is that you have a compass built into the quest HUD which makes sure that you're always going in the right direction. It's a tiny touch which is actually really helpful and makes the game a generally less frustrating experience, I guess, which in a game like this is exactly what you want. I've seen a lot of people compare this game to other games like Zelda or Harvest Moon or Stardew Valley, and they'd be right to in some ways, sure. I mean, the influence is definitely there in some senses, but it's always more in the sense of an homage than an imitation. Sure, the game has farming elements, but it isn't just a copy and paste kind of situation. Just because Stardew Valley came out relatively recently does not mean that it has a monopoly on the concept of farming simulation in video games. And I feel like the comparison at points is very much just at face value. I imagine when people are using this Zelda comparison, it's mostly to do with a similar visual design to Wind Waker or Breath of the Wild, or the fact that there's exploration across a large vibrant world. But this game is not a Zelda game. It isn't a clone of another farming sim. It's its own game and does create that perfect balance between taking influence and maintaining originality. It succeeded here because if you do enjoy elements prevalent in these other games, like exploration or management, then you'll probably enjoy this too. It does the game a disservice to brand it wantonly as a rip-off. But this finally leads me to my conclusion though. Should you play this game? Yes, I think you should. It's a really good game, it's just important that you know what it is before you go in. This game subverts the social norms in modern gaming by getting rid of stuff like combat or really heavy and intense narratives or feelings of pressure and competition, and instead creates an experience and environment which you can just simply bask in and enjoy. The game's biggest strength is in its exploration and world building, and although the game could certainly be improved in some regards, while there are a few quality of life changes that could be made, this game is unequivocally an absolute pleasure to play. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. Thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you agree or disagree with what I've said, please leave a comment and let me know, and if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like or subscribing. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you next time.